a big win last night, and a win that I think sent a message across the National Basketball Association, which is Hassan Whiteside is a physical player who's not going to put up with your BS. I love that moment with Jermichael Green last night where they got into a shoving match. I love the fact that they get the win, the Utah Jazz do against the Denver Nuggets. And when Nikola Jokic went out, they put their foot on the gas. In the especially in the fourth quarter, they attacked the basket. I think you got huge contributions out of just about everybody. And by the way, if you just don't understand how important Mike Conley is to this basketball team, Jake, I don't know that there will be a better example of that than his contribution, especially in the first half. But it all throughout that game last night, I thought he was great.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing well, and I think that, we know who Mike Conley is. He's a guy who's going to knock down the three. He's a guy who's going to be elite in the pick and roll. And frankly, the question has never really been what he's able to do on the floor. I mean, it's not any secret that Mike Conley is a really good player. The problem has just always been his availability. And I think last night it was on full display that, when he's playing, he's able to knock down threes real easy. He's able to put Rudy Gobert in good positions. He puts his other teammates in good positions. So, I mean, yeah, Mike Conley is a very important piece to the puzzle for the Utah Jazz, and I just think that they got to make it a priority to keep him healthy this year. Like I think we see like with the Lakers last night, LeBron's not playing and they still get the job done. I would expect the same thing out of the Jazz with Mike Conley. Rest him on the back-to-back and go and win those games. That's what you have to do. So I love watching Mike Conley play basketball. I just think at some point we have to figure out if he's actually going to be there at the end or if he's going to run into the injury bug again. So that would obviously be the only concern with Mike Conley. I think he shows you what he can do pretty consistently.
Yeah, and I think his overall presence, the experience, the calming factor, obviously he's an elite three-point shooter. He continues to show his ability to distribute the ball, whether that's to Rudy on the lob or the reverse last night that I thought was that reverse pass that was so important. I think we saw a lot of good Mike Conley last night. I think we saw a lot of good Rudy Gobert last night. As soon as Jokic was out of that game in the second half, the Jazz clearly made an effort to get Rudy the basketball with lobs, and he was able to inflict his will on the block. I thought that chase down block late in the first half was a real big moment in this game. I think again, Rudy Gobert showed his value in this game. And already I see in the comments said, oh, well, there was no Jamal Murray and no Nikola Jokic. Does it matter? No, it doesn't. The Utah Jazz got to win. And that was on October 26th of 2021 where they beat the Nuggets. And that ain't never going to change.
And I think just the same way that, we want to talk about, hey, well, the Jazz would have won a game, would have beat the Clippers if they were healthy. Yeah, we can all agree that this game would have been a lot closer. It wouldn't have been a 12-point game at the end of the day if Jokic, hadn't gone off and if Murray was available. But, at the end of the day, I think we all have to agree that health is a factor in the game. Health is something that every team deals with. And I think that, just because a team isn't healthy doesn't mean that we should discount the win that the Jazz put out last night. I mean, you're talking about the Jazz beating a Nuggets team that is a pretty good team, even with their shortcomings on the injury front. And you beat them by 12 at home. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I expected them to win by 12, but damn if I didn't expect them to win the game. I mean, we said yesterday they should win this game. So to me, you took care of business. I love that Hassan Whiteside brought that gritty, no nonsense attitude at the end of the game. I think Don is still working on getting himself fully kind of going as an individual contributor. And I think this team is in a really good spot right now. Now, when you go on the road, we're going to see who you really are against some of these next opponents. Not that they're world beaters, but it's not going to be easy. So that's, I think you're in a good spot as you go out on a road trip.
Yeah, and I'm curious about, some of the other things that we saw in this game. Obviously, Jordan Clarkson was red hot at times in this game, and I think you now have a real core of a second unit for the Utah Jazz. When you look at the way that Jared Butler came into this game with all kinds of confidence, I think Jordan Clarkson obviously gave you a big contribution. Even though his face seems to be melting down with some growth of a human being coming from his cheekbone. Eric Paschall, I thought, banged a little bit in that game. Like, I think you got something
I was gonna do something,
throwing
but then I was
off
like,
his face.
yeah.
You really have nothing for me on Eric Pascal's
Facial growths are probably, you know, probably shouldn't. Yeah, no, I don't know
Yeah,
what's going
Eric
on with his
Pascal
face.
has a facial infection and was questionable.
Questionable, doubtful,
He
whatever it
played. It
was,
does. I
whatever
guess
the
it doesn't
label was.
matter.
You know,
But
he was out there. I think I think there's no question that the second unit this year is better than it was last year. I just think that's not in doubt. That's not in
well, you have
question.
guys you can count on. I
Yeah.
mean, you get 3 guys in double digits off the bench last night. 13 from Jingles, who I thought again shot the ball really well. That is one of the main concerning things coming out of this game. Is that the Jazz are not shooting the 3 ball very well. You're at 30%. In that game
How
last
many did they
night.
take last night?
39, 12 of 39, which, by the way, 39 feels a little light for this
It
ball
does.
club.
It does.
I mean, I think there was a concerted effort, obviously, in the second half to get to the basket,
But
which
I
you
have
understand.
to say, I would prefer them to win a game and to be able to win games in this style than to not. You know, like this is a game like you were just saying where they didn't shoot well from three, but you still go out and you're able to win the game because you were playing a physical brand of basketball with a physical team, admittedly. So I think that the more ways that the Jazz can find ways to win ball games, that's obviously a good thing. I felt like last year at times it was very much a case of, hey, if you didn't knock down 40% of those threes, you weren't winning the game.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I feel like that, at least right now to this point, obviously we can't say the whole season yet, but to this point so far, it feels like they're more than just a 3-and-D team now so far. I mean, it feels like there's a real emphasis, like you were saying, to get Rudy the ball. There's a real emphasis to get penetration in the paint, to get a higher percentage look. And I like that. And I think that if that's going to be the brand that they play all year, they're going to be in much better shape overall as a team.
Yeah, and I think, when we talk about sending a message, Hassan Whiteside has already become a very important player to this team. And, his defense has got to improve. I think, again, we saw last night, late rotations, just not quite in sync with the Jazz system yet. But the toughness, the want to, the hustle, the effort, that Jermichael Green thing, even though both were ejected, I think that's something that's been missing. This Jazz team for the last several years has been soft. And Rudy Gobert is soft. He's not a guy that's ever going to walk up and punch you in the face. Hassan Whiteside's a guy that you don't want to body with right now. Like, he's a guy that does not care. He'll take the smoke. Like, he doesn't
drop that mother.
Yeah, he doesn't care. I mean, honestly, and that's something I think is of real value to this Utah Jazz team, because you need toughness in the playoffs. And whether that's Jay Crowder, whether that's, oh my God, his name went Tucker. PJ Tucker in Milwaukee last year. Patrick Beverly, breaking Devin Booker's face and Chris Paul's hands. Like, you need that on your team. Now, Hassan Whiteside might not be to that level, but you're not going to push the Jazz around when he's on the floor. You're not going to do that. And I think that's something that's of real value, because the Jazz don't have an enforcer. And I don't know even that Hassan Whiteside is an enforcer, but it was nice to see a Jazz man willing to get his nose dirty, in the middle of the paint and have an altercation. I think that's something we have not seen enough of from this team.
Yeah, and I think it really, what fueled that fire was that it was a play with which Donovan Mitchell was finishing at the rim. And, Hassan Whiteside's guy was trying to push him out of the way to get there.
Jermichael Green,
Jermichael Green. And I think that, I just think that Hassan is showing you, what he can really be. I feel like he's a guy in the league that a lot of people are like, well, this guy's kind of average. You get him, it's good on some nights and not good on others. To this point, and again, I know it's still early, but to this point, I feel like he's been really good for this team. Not just the toughness and what he did last night with Jermichael Green, but I also feel like, he's playing good. He's playing good defense. The Jazz don't have a real steep fall off in rim protection when he's on the floor like they did last year. So that's already a huge improvement. And by the way, last night, not that he was knocking him down, but he has a little bit of a floater game. He's got a little bit of a little jumper. He's got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So he provides them offensive flexibility as well. So I just think that picking him up specifically was a savvy move, but B, really a significant upgrade for them. And I think we see it in situations like that. And by the way, when you're going out on the road basically for the first time this year, you're gonna face adversity. And the question really is, how are you gonna react to that? And we now know how Hassan Whiteside is gonna react to that adversity, which is he's not gonna take any of that. So I loved what I saw out of him. And I think this team is just overall like in a much better spot than they had been.
Now that we've painted the rosy picture,
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be concerning that Aaron Gordon kicked your ass for 4 quarters last night.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, and this is something we talked about leading up to this game. And yes, I'd like to tell you 2 things. I am a sexy human being,
Mm-hmm.
and I know everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's a joke. I was kidding. Well, I mean, I do know everything, and I am sexy, but that's not really my point here. My point is, we warned you about this exact matchup going into this game last night. The Nuggets were going to use Aaron Gordon to prove a point against Bojan Bogdanovic, and Bogey couldn't answer the bell against Aaron Gordon. And I think the thing that you're seeing is there was a real firm game plan in place. Jokic was going to attack Rudy Gobert, and Aaron Gordon was going to attack Bojan Bogdanovic. And boy, did they not, did they not execute that to a T.
Yeah.
And it's that one thing where if you attack the Jazz in the paint, the Jazz don't have an answer to that. And I don't know what the adjustment is for Quinn. I think it's very difficult when you have a center like, Nikola Jokic, who can shoot the 3, who can bang with you inside, who's got elite footwork. I mean, he turned Rudy all the way around on that one layup in the second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that this is the blueprint to beat the Jazz. Attack the paint, pull Rudy away from the basket, and have your way at the rim. And I think what you're seeing is Nikola Jokic demanded respect because he made 3s early in this game. I mean, this cat was at 24 points going to the half. I mean, this guy was
pacing for 50, bro.
He was, like before he was injured. Remember, he went out of this game in the second quarter. He had 24 points. I mean, to your point, he was pacing for 50. The question is, what's the adjustment going to be for the Jazz? Because you're going on a trip right now where you're going to go face a bunch of teams that are going to attack the paint. That's what they do. And again, I know that we got mocked a bunch in the comments yesterday about, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. The Houston Rockets, you're an idiot. Watch what the Houston Rockets do against the Jazz. Watch what the Chicago Bulls do against the Jazz. That is without question, the Chicago Bulls are currently the best team in the NBA. They are playing the best basketball, and how are they doing it? With 3 wings that know how to get the ball into the hoop.
Yeah.
Whether that's Zach LaVine, who can hit 3s or dunk on you. DeMar DeRozan's back to the basket game right now is
filthy.
Elite. It is elite. And you look at the way Lonzo Ball is shooting the 3, but you look at the fact that he is a pass, then shoot guy. The Jazz are going to have their hands full in Chicago.
And then you have Alex Caruso you have to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, their bench has been very good. I'm not a Vucevic guy personally. I don't think that – I think Rudy is a better player than Vucevic is. But, I mean, he's somebody you have to respect because he can shoot the 3. So, I think this trip is going to be very telling for the Jazz. I mean, I don't think there's any question they take their first loss on this trip. I don't know how you don't. I mean, as much time as you've had off in the last week, that all comes to an end with this trip. This is asking a lot. I don't know, what is the adjustment if you're Quinn Snyder? What is the adjustment you make defensively?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like last night. The problem when you're playing Aaron Gordon is that he's quicker than you and he's stronger than you.
Yeah.
So when you're playing somebody who is slower than you but stronger, okay, we can deal with that. There are things you can do to handle that. And if you're playing with someone who's weaker than you, but maybe has a better first step than you do, okay, we can compensate for that. But when they have both, that's going to be really difficult to stop. And I think, not only did he do it against Bogey, there were moments where he did it against Royce. So they don't really have an answer. And I feel like the only guy who on the block, not on the perimeter, but on the block could keep up physically would be like a Pascal or something like that. They don't really have another guy who is a consistent starter who can keep up with Aaron Gordon. And so, like yesterday, so I think the adjustment is, you have to find a way to get Rudy to sag off his defender a little bit without encouraging Aaron Gordon to pass it. You got to find the middle ground.
I think the problem is the Jazz get into they get into trouble when Rudy does that too often. And
Yeah.
when you have somebody that can keep Rudy Gobert honest at the line, when you have a guy like a Vucevic or, obviously Jokic
Mm-hmm.
very clearly is an elite 3-point shooter. And I mean, again, we saw he was a phenomenal passer last night.
Yeah.
But when you have a guy like that who can do those things, Rudy Gobert tends to get comfortable sagging away from his man.
Right. He gets paint happy for sure.
And you just can't do that against elite bigs in this league. I think obviously Joel Embiid taught us that lesson last year in Philly on that trip at the end of the first half.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger question is, how do you find a happy medium with Rudy Gobert helping on, from his guy to protect the paint?
Yeah, I think it's an awkward situation for the Jazz defense because I think we'll see it all year long. I think this is an adjustment that teams are going to make. I do believe that it's been identified by the rest of the league that you can outstrength particular guys in the starting five for the Jazz, or you can outquick them. So like the reason I know that the Jazz will struggle against teams like the Bulls or the Rockets or any of these really young gun, high flying, fast paced track meet style teams is because that's not the style of basketball the Jazz play. They're not a team that's looking to run up and down and constantly like be pushing the pace. Yes, they do that sometimes, but they're more that half court set, pick and roll, use Mike Conley's vision, use Mike Conley's touch in the passing game. That's what they do. So what is the adjustment? I'm not so sure that there is an adjustment for what Aaron Gordon did to you last night, and that's why it happened for 4 quarters, and that's a tough thing to say, but at the end of the day, what are the real options? Okay, we're going to pull Rudy down to the paint a little more to show Aaron Gordon that he's going to come and help if he pushes through. Okay, well, what is Aaron Gordon going to do? He's going to go through bogey, and then he's going to kick it for an open three. The Jazz don't want to give that up either. So that's why I say maybe the question isn't, hey, what are we doing defensively? Maybe the question really should be, how can we just score more? And that's what we're seeing in the league.
Well, and I think that this goes back to the Royce O'Neal conversation that we had yesterday, and we got a bunch of people freaking out on YouTube over this in the comments post haste the show yesterday.
And it's going to go into crisis lockdown mode here at the house.
This is why Royce O'Neal just being a guy makes it so that you're in a tight game through 3 quarters with the Nuggets, because when Royce O'Neal goes 5 points, 1 of 4 from 3 in 31 minutes, and he gives you 3 rebounds and 2 assists, like he's not making the contribution that you need him to make. And I think that's why I always say, if you're going to upgrade a guy on this team, upgrade Royce O'Neal. I mean, you have to find a way to upgrade that position. And again, everybody was talking about Harrison Barnes yesterday. I would love to add Harrison Barnes to this roster. I think it's nearly impossible to do that because of his value. I don't know who that body will be.
Yeah.
But if you're going to upgrade somebody, it's got to be Royce O'Neal. And I think that the difficult part for the Jazz is you're very good right now.
Mm-hmm.
Does upgrading make sense with Royce O'Neal? Because I also think there's only so many shots to go around every game, and we've talked about this. We talked about it yesterday.
Yeah.
There's only so many shots to go around. But am I the only one who looks at Donovan Mitchell right now, and I don't see a guy that's gotten hot yet?
What was his chart last night? What's
1
what
of 9 from 3 for 22 points.
Okay, 1 of 9 from 3, and then how
9
many?
of 20 from the floor.
So he's just not shooting it well right now. I mean, he's making plays, right? Like, if you watch that game last night, he's making a ton of plays, and like, there was that one pick and roll moment where he spin moves to get to his right hand and finishes. I mean, that's a beautiful play, but I think, one thing we talked about a lot at the end of last season was that Donovan Mitchell likes to play hero ball in the big moment. And obviously you haven't had one of those big moments yet. However, I do think that Don has come out and has been, more strategic. I'm not going to say conservative because I don't think he's holding back clearly with those shot numbers, but I do think he's picking and choosing his spots, more strategically. And I like to see that. However, they need to go in. They need to start going in. I mean, if you look at his numbers again, what did you say he was? Like 1 of 9 from 3?
1 of 9, 9 of 20 from the floor.
What is that, 29 shots?
But here's the other issue. Just 20 shots. Here's the other issue. 2 rebounds, 6 dimes. So Donovan Mitchell just is not playing his game yet.
Mm-hmm.
He just has not gotten into the flow of things. So nights like this are very interesting. These are the nights where, and I don't know if I'm sure it's James Knight with us. He'll love me saying, I think, but like you look at a guy like a Joe Ingles, this is where Joe Ingles' value shoots way up.
Yes.
When you are struggling from three, Joe Ingles will hit a three for you.
Yeah.
This is why, Mike Conley being a low-key guy, Mike Conley's an elite three-point shooter. When Donovan Mitchell's struggling, Mike Conley's going to make a three for you.
Oh, and he did that last night too. What is he, 4-4 in the first half?
Yeah, I mean, this team is good, not great. And so when we talk about upgrading, I think that spot is Royce O'Neal, because the other thing that I think you saw last night is that when you have a guy like Bojan who has his hands full defensively, he only gives you 14 points. Bojan Bogdanovic, for this team to be elite's got to be a 20-point guy.
Mm-hmm.
He has got to be. Bojan Bogdanovic also, the other thing that concerns you a little bit is the rebounds from your starting five. I mean, Rudy obviously had his at 23 and 16. They did not rebound offensively very well. And you expect more than 8 offensive rebounds out of this Jazz team. Now, that's a luxury, obviously, but it's what you've become accustomed to.
Right.
And furthermore, I would say when you only shoot 12 of 39 from three, you would think that you would have more than 8 offensive rebounds. So this team is just not – I know you're 3-0. This Utah Jazz team has not played its best basketball, not close.
And I think, with the record and when we're talking about them not having played their best yet, remember that we're not talking about just being a really good regular season team anymore. This is super crucial that we all remember – like the place that we're having this conversation from. The stated goal of this team this year by Donovan Mitchell himself was to win a championship.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that people understand when we're having these conversations, we're having it from a championship perspective, not from a like, hey, are we a good team in the league? Yeah, obviously you're a good team in the league, man. Like, there's no doubt about that. I mean, most people would say that you're a top 3 team in the league, if not a top 5 by everybody's standards. So to me, yeah, you're 3-0, but yeah, there's a lot that you could do better to get to number 1 in the league again. So that's what we're talking about.
Well, and your schedule's going to allow you to have growing pains like this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your schedule, the Jazz have a phenomenal schedule. Let's get some of your comments in here because I see a lot of you here. What's up, Tanner Plummer? First in, James Knight. G'day, lads. Cody Strickland says, good morning, boys. Got to say, Jazz are not looking like a championship style team, and it's hard for me to say that. I just think they haven't played well yet.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason to be negative, right?
No. I think you feel very good about the fact that you haven't lost. You beat one of the better teams in the West last night, Nikola Jokic, and with or without Nikola Jokic, you beat the Denver Nuggets. And I think you did that with the Nuggets playing the exact style of basketball they wanted to play, which was get to the paint, expose Bojan Bogdanovic's lack of defense and get in Rudy Gobert's chest. And they did that repeatedly, and the Jazz still won the game.
Right.
So you feel good about that. I think it's easy to sit here and say, oh, well, with Jokic and Murray. Well, guess what? They didn't have Jokic and Murray. So the Jazz can only beat the Nuggets that are on the floor in front of them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would the Jazz have lost this game if Jokic plays? I have no idea. Because he didn't play. So I don't know.
I think either way, it's a really tight game.
The Jazz won the game.
Yeah.
And so I don't care what would have happened with Jokic because he wasn't here. This is the conversation from last season that I had to slap your bag about yesterday. I don't care who was hurt last season. The Milwaukee Bucks won the championship and your team didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you're a Laker, a Bull, a Suns fan, doesn't matter. The Milwaukee Bucks, for the entirety of the rest of your life, will be NBA champions in 2020, 2021. And there ain't no change in that. So the Jazz won last night. It is what it is. Gabe Ledley says, morning, guys. What's up? Lopes fan Gabe, good to see you. Jeremy Bolton, good morning. Q Sam says, Whiteside adds an edge. Absolutely. Jeremy Bolton says, the Nuggets loss lays squarely with Jokic and Murray. I think he means Jokic.
Okay.
Because they're injured. Well, that may be true, but who cares? Brood Wars says, I don't know why you'd ever want to console with a disc. Are you talking about video games?
Yeah, he's talking about video games.
Spoken like someone who's never seen digital games delisted from online storefronts or has games from prior console generations. Well, I do, But the problem is I don't have hours of the day to play games.
Yeah.
So I might play Xbox 3-4 hours a week, maybe, and that's in a good week. So yeah, you're right. I don't game the way I used to. Now, when it was many years, 10 years ago, sure, I played a lot more. Played a lot more Call of Duty, drank a lot more Mountain Dew. That's why I was am fat. Well, I mean, less fat, but still
Fat?
Anyway, the point is,
So get your facts straight.
yeah, you don't need a disc. James Knight says Bogdanovich will not be a Jazz player much longer. He is clearly our main defensive deficiency.
I don't know that I'm going to sit here and agree that he's clearly your main defensive deficiency. Is he one of them? Yes, but I think this whole thing about Royce O'Neal and not getting bullied last night and getting beat off the first step, like Royce O'Neal's deficiencies aren't exactly being hidden right now. I mean, like Royce definitely got beat by Aaron Gordon several times. So I'm not disagreeing with you on Bogey. I do think I literally said yesterday, I think he's one of the main trade chips this team has, but I'm not also going to sit here and say that he's like some embarrassment as a defender. He's never been regarded as some great defender. Royce O'Neal, for the longest time by Jazz fans, has been called some great defender, and he's not.
There is a belief that Royce O'Neal is an elite on-ball defender, and I'm telling you he's not. And I know that we took a lot of heat for that last year. I will still say the same thing. He cannot keep a guy in front of him. Watch him one-on-one. He cannot keep a guy in front of him. And if
on this road trip, you'll see it.
If that's your best on-ball defender, which, by the way, he's not. Donovan Mitchell's defense, he is playing pretty solid defense right now. I mean, he and Mike Conley, I think, are your two best non-Rudy defenders. I mean, Rudy Gobert's your best defensive player, but I think Donovan Mitchell's defense has gotten better. Mm-hmm. I look at a guy who I think defense is an attitude. And Bojan Bogdanovic, I think, is slow. I think Bojan Bogdanovic lacks any kind of quality footwork. And I think he cannot move to his left or right. And in this league, when you're going backwards, it's over. It's over. And I think that's the biggest issue. And I just think Royce O'Neal is a guy who, I'm trying not to be a jerk about it, but I just don't think he's an average player. I don't know why so many people lost their shit yesterday on YouTube when I said he's just a guy. But if you go and read the comments on yesterday's video, like there's 4 or 5 guys who are like, oh, we literally had, do you guys watch Jazz games? No, we don't. Royce O'Neal's just a guy. He is not special. He is not unique. Mm-hmm. There's 100 other guys just like Royce O'Neal. He is not irreplaceable even a little bit. Mm-hmm. Not even a little bit. Mm-hmm. Brood Wars says it's nice to see the Jazz lineups change over the years, but their ability to play down to their competition never does. Well, I don't know what that comment has to do with last night because I think the Nuggets are a very good team.
Yeah.
And they're only going to get better as Murray continues to work his way back. Don't forget who Jamal Murray is. That's a bad MFer. Like that's a guy.
That is their Donovan Mitchell, dude. I mean, he put up 50 in a postseason game. Like,
that's a guy that can really play the game of basketball, and they miss him dearly. And hey, to their credit, I mean, like I think Will Barton has really stepped into a role for them. You're not replacing Jamal Murray. You're just not. I mean, think about it this way: Dozier would have never seen the court last night if Murray's healthy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge step up.
And by the way, if Murray's healthy, Jokic is just on a whole nother planet in terms of performance.
Because you can't sag.
Yeah.
You cannot leave. Like, there's not a Murray matchup that works well. Because I guarantee you they would be playing 3 to 4 guard rotations.
Yeah.
And Michael Porter Jr., by the way, still is not playing his best basketball either. Like the Nuggets, I'm telling you, the Nuggets ceiling, as much improvement as we're going to see out of the Jazz as the weeks and months go on, you're going to see that much improvement out of the Nuggets too. Like I expect a big jump forward out of that club.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we've talked about the Clippers without Kawhi, certainly whatever the hell the Lakers are right now, and we're going to talk about them in a minute, like you expect the Denver Nuggets to take a big jump forward. Tanner Plummer says, how many threes do you think this team should take on a game-to-game basis? I think Quinn said last year, didn't he say 53s a game? Like, you can't take too many. And I agree with that
Yep.
because the more threes you shoot, the more effective Rudy Gobert becomes.
Well, and you're playing the numbers, right? I mean, the more you take theoretically, the more you should make. I mean, so that's kind of what their philosophy is. But I just think that I just feel like this game last year, the Jazz would not have won this game last year.
Yeah.
And I say that because last year they would not have been able to answer physically, and I felt like that Hassan moment really kind of solidified things.
Yeah,
So
I would agree with that.
I was really happy to see that.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Val Umfris says, aloha from the 808. See you soon. 27 days to Maui.
Let's go.
Jeremy Bolton says, this Nuggets loss lays squarely on Jaren Hall. Bro, are you still salty over Jaren Hall? You're still upset. It's Wednesday. That was Monday. You're still upset over Jaren Hall.
So what is he upset about? Jaren Hall's average-ass performance?
I don't know. He didn't say what he's upset about.
What are you upset about?
His comment is the Nuggets loss lays squarely on Jaren Hall. That dude is an average quarterback. Nuggets should have had Conover in there. He would not. He would have got it done.
Yeah. Hey, I agree, bro. I agree.
Yeah, and you'd still be talking about a college football playoff spot.
How is that even possible?
James Knight says Aaron Gordon is 6'8". He's going to shoot over most wing defenders. He's got them to fall tonight. Let's not get carried away. Aaron Gordon wasn't beating you with threes.
No.
Okay, Aaron Gordon put his shoulder into your chest, and you had no answer. And then he hit little fadeaways on Rudy, and he showed no fear, and the turnaround in the middle of the paint, and taking Bojan Bogdanovic right to the rack. And by the way, did anybody see Nikola Jokic? And this is the Rudy Gobert conversation. Every big man's getting dunked on in this league.
Yeah.
Nikola Jokic doesn't have to dunk on you to make you, look silly. He spun Rudy Gobert around because Nikola Jokic is an elite big. You know why he's the MVP. So I don't necessarily have a problem with Rudy Gobert struggling against a guy like Jokic because who doesn't struggle? The bigger issue with the Jazz defense and Bogdanovic and protecting that paint is Rudy can't block every shot.
Yeah.
Rudy can't stop every layup. When he's one-on-one with a guard, you're asking him to recover and block a shot from behind. You can see, much to your point when we were not watching the game together last night.
Right.
Because we don't watch Jazz basketball.
We don't. We actually don't. We just kind of read the cliff notes after the game.
But, when we were watching the game last night, Jake said the league is adjusted to the Jazz now. And it's time for the Jazz to adjust back to the league. And that's exactly right. You can see offenses know how to attack the Utah Jazz now.